Matt Davies, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for accepting my invite. And then it's a privilege to have you on the show. And I started this idea of this podcast to get to know the journey of people who have made it in the industry. And you have been such a phenomenal guy. Your works with Nikon, your works with Capital One. I saw the kind of content you put on LinkedIn. I've been through your podcast and I've been through your talks on Copper Perry. So I was like, I need to speak with this guy about branding. And like, he looks like, when I meet people, I work as a marketing consultant, and when I meet people or when I go into meetings, they say like, what is branding? You just create a logo and you put it on a social media or you put it on a website and people will come to you. So Matt Davies, the rock star branding consultant, I want to hear from you, what exactly is branding?
Okay, so I want to really, first of all, detangle a couple of things, right? Because, you know, marketing, let's put some stuff out there. First of all, marketing is not branding. Right, marketing is part of branding, but it is not branding. A lot of people, as you say, sort of refer to a brand as a logo and some fonts. A brand is not a set of logos and fonts. However, logos and fonts are part of branding, right? So what is branding then? What is this thing? And because we have a definition issue, we have an identity crisis, if you like, when it comes to brand. For me, the way that I define it is that a brand is the meaning that other people attach to you and your offer. So whether you're a multinational corporation or you are just an individual person, people will attach particular parts or particular meaning to you. And when we come to business, what that means is that we're in business for a reason. We're in business to try and ultimately to serve people so that they pay us with money. And so branding is really, really important, because what branding is the attempt to manage that meaning. And that's what branding is, in my view. It's not a logo and fonts. You could have the world's greatest designed logo. You could have spent millions of dollars on the logo. It will not necessarily mean that you've managed all of the meaning that people attach to you, because the logo is a tiny little label, important but still small in relation to the wider components of what branding really is. And so it's a massive challenge. For particularly as companies grow and scale, to manage their meaning. And of course, just to touch on the marketing point, it's very important to marketing, because you need to position the brand effectively so that you can attract people to you, so you can attract leads, so salespeople can then go and close the leads, so you can generate customers, so you can serve them, so you can delight them, and then ultimately you can if they love you enough, they'll put their hand in their pocket and they'll pay you the money that you need, and then you can grow your business and everybody's a winner. But here's the thing, that is huge, because marketing is just at the front. There's all the other steps, as well. And frankly, I think we can overlook the real value that we're trying to create for customers by simply thinking of branding as a lick of paint, a veneer, and a logo and fonts. And that's why I advocate for a wider a view of it, and a more meaningful view that businesses can then use to build really effective brands and businesses from. So I guess that's where I'm coming from when I talk about brand.
That is quite insightful. With that definition of branding, which you have said, quite insightful. What I heard from a lot of people who are marketing consultants or management consultants, this has really changed my perspective of branding. And to follow up with that, I saw your interview, I saw your talk at Cooper Perry, and you're talking you have mentioned that branding is more of strategic, and whereas marketing is more of a tactic. So I want to know from you, so what is at the crux of branding?
Right. So big question. So what contains branding? Well, for me, there's a few components that we could simplify it down to. So the first is, I would call the first component is kind of like leadership, right? So this idea is based around the fact that we need to define the meaning that we want people to attach to us. And often, we go out to people and we say, hey, what meaning would you like to attach to us? So that's one approach. But the other approach is to get the leaders in the room, informed by research, informed by insights. And really, they have to make a decision on where do they want to go? What's their vision for the brand? Why are they in business? And to do that, you need to align around some core principles. So just very briefly, my approach is quite simple. It sounds really easy, really hard to do. But my approach is to answer 4 key questions. Number 1, why do we exist beyond making money? Number 2, who do we exist to serve and why should they care? Number 3, how do we show up in a relevant way to those people? And number 4, what is our offer or what is our promise? Now, if you know the answers to those and everybody from the leadership team is aligned around that and they're committed to that, I think you're in a good place. But that's just the start, right? That really is just the start. And a lot of people just sort of finish there, or they take that and they go and give it to a design company and they say, go make us a logo and some graphics that represent this direction. And they do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But again, it's only one small part, because the next stage, once you've set that, is to take that strategic thinking and you then need to drive it down into the organization. Or if it's a smaller company, out to the staff. So the way that I split that up is in 2 ways. Again, I'm a simple person, right, Sheikh? So I like to have simple models. So the current model that I sort of advocate is what I call within and without. So the 2 should fuse together, but ultimately what you've got is you've got the culture of the organization within. You've got people. You've got how you recruit them, how you develop them, the routines, the way that you reward them and incentivize them, the way that they think about what they're doing and how it connects to the larger questions, the purpose and the why. So you've got a lot of activity to do to build infrastructure and design the organization from within. And then you can't just do that, because then you've also got to look at how do you present this to customers? Because ultimately the purpose of a business is to serve customers. So you have to fuse the 2 together. So yes, the logo and the fonts, but you need to then get together with marketing. Well, usually I call it's sales, marketing, and usually it's called customer success people or, account managers. So how are we, and there might be innovation in there as well, because you need to come up with new stuff. So how are those people thinking about the core principles and bringing them into their work? Because if they're not, then we're going to have a splintered organization. And what I see a lot of, and you might do too, Sheikh, is that as businesses grow, if they don't do the first step, which is to define the core ideas, the principles by which they're going to function, what tends to happen is as leadership teams grow and some people get older and retire, other new people come in, some people leave the organization, whatever it might be, they're not unified, they're not aligned. And even, I've worked with some big companies, as you say, but small companies, the core problem I come across time and time again is this question of alignment. As soon as you've got lots of humans in a room, and as soon as they're quite, they're filled with emotion, they're filled with their view of things, and they're experts in their own field, and nobody's saying that they're not. But the problem that particularly CEOs have is, how do we stick all these people together? They're all lions, right? How do we herd the lions? You're from India, so maybe I should say tigers. They're all tigers, right? And how do we get all the tigers to work together to really make this a real success? And what I found is that brand and brand principles, if you apply them correctly, after you've defined them, you can use them to design, to make decisions, to help the tigers all march in the same direction. It's less friction, less wasted time, and it's a lot more enjoyable for everybody concerned in relation to looking at whether they're in HR and operations and they're looking within, or whether they're in marketing and customer success and they're looking without. If they all fuse together into something that's much higher and much more interesting, then I think, I've seen it. It happens. It clicks. It's a lot more enjoyable.
And that's a lot of insight. I saw a lot of talks, but when I'm speaking to you on a call, I feel like I'm talking to a real expert. I mean, the way you're describing about the question about, to follow up with that alignment. So I read your article, and one of your thing you said in one of your bios in the LinkedIn, you write that aligning leadership teams. So when you talk about unification, and a lot of people, when I meet them, they're like, I want to align my whole team to be customer centric.
Yes.
So how do you counter that?
Yeah, let me just take that. So I believe it should be customer centric. Okay, so this is maybe let me be super clear here, because branding is the meaning we want other people to attach to us. So the question is who are those people, right? Now, if you set a brand up, a lot of people make the mistake of saying my brand exists for everybody, right? Or everyone in my, even if they categorize a category, everybody in this category, all millennials. I see that a lot. Who is our target audience? Millennials. Oh, really? There's like millions of them. Like, come on, you can't be here for all of them, because if you don't stand for something, for some of them, you're just going to be mediocre. You're just going to be plain vanilla. You're just going to try and appeal to all these people. No, we've got to get deeper than that. We've got to understand who our tribe is, if you can call it that, who our customers are, who are we really here to serve. And funnily enough, the more you focus in on that, the more you can stand for something. Because what you're saying to your group is, your audience is, we are here for you. We're going to design the whole experience around you. We're going to, we're going to show you that we're true and authentic to the purpose, which we know aligns with yours. Our values align with yours. And so our mission here is to serve you in the most brilliant way possible. You're not going to get this experience, this offer, this product from anywhere else, because we've made it so niche and so perfect for what you need, so convenient, so, says all the right things, it feels right. So when you're orientating towards the customer as your objective, that's great. So for me, the customer and the brand, the customer-centric approach that you've mentioned, and the brand, they are very much intertwined. The only difference is that someone somewhere has to make a decision on when okay, a lot of products today, we live in a global marketplace. We have people all over the world that could usually, it's very rare that you find a product or a service that cannot be replicated by someone in terms of the functions and the features of that thing. But what you can do is you therefore need to distinguish usually how you're delivering that thing, not what you're delivering, but how you deliver it. And that how is where branding really plays, because the how is about how you not only deliver the service but how you manage that meaning as you deliver that service. And so it's a complicated question, but for me, that's what I would say. I would say the two things are very closely aligned, but we have to have a very good picture of who the customer is, who this brand exists to serve. Point number 2 of my sort of 4 questions: who are we here to serve? And that has to be selected by leadership.
Oh, and to follow up with that, I have a question. Like in one of your podcasts, I heard you saying, like, I want to take the story of branding. I want to take branding into the boardroom. And by that, I heard this line from you, and that stuck with me. Like, branding is a cause and effect of all the decisions made in a room. So it's going to impact all the stakeholders in the ecosystem. So as of now, where the startup costs are equal to zero, and where the infrastructure cost is low, and where people are coming up with startups like every other day. So what do you think, how big brands are, or how a small brand is going to tussle with a big brand in the same niche?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And, the startup scene is very exciting. I do work with startup brands from time to time, because but the trouble with startups is they don't have a lot of money, right? So, frankly, without being arrogant, I charge a lot, so I don't work with huge amounts, but the ones I do, I really enjoy. The ones that they might have seed money or whatever, they've got investment. But so I do understand that there's a difference. There is a difference, I would say, between a young startup company and more established companies. And the difference is usually around scale. So, when you've got a small business, let's say let's say it's just one entrepreneur, got a great idea. Maybe it's a tech idea. They develop an app. It's phenomenal. It starts to take off. Great. But as time goes on, they need to then get to manage the volume, to manage the day-to-day of that business. They have to get people around them. So they grow the business, they hire a few people, and then that's fine usually, because everybody's still really connected to the founder. So all these ideas of brand usually exist in the mind of the founder, who's usually really passionate, really understands, why they're different, makes the decisions that, understands the type of customer that they're going to serve. And they're really kind of, they say, no, that's not us. That's not us. we're this, and it just becomes organic, natural in the way that those decisions are made. The problem comes when it really takes off. Maybe you're 8 to 10 years in and suddenly it goes woof, and you get exponential growth. And now you're recruiting like mad. You're in a growth phase. I spoke to a company the other day. They're recruiting 50 people a month, right? 50 people a month. I mean, they're a massive corporate down in Cyprus. But, that's the thing, right? How do you manage the meaning of that volume of people? Okay. And if you don't design it and think about it, what's going to happen is you're going to recruit people that perhaps don't understand the brand, perhaps don't align with what the brand is. And this is where, I sort of mentioned within and without, because your employee experience and the types of people in your organization will affect your customer experience and the type of experiences they have. So unless I am inside out, in a way, like I do believe that it starts with leadership and then it starts with designing this stuff within. So then as it goes through the different layers of the organization, eventually you get to the customer, and all of those micro decisions that are made along the way should be connected to the brand so that it all joins together. And if they're not, that's when I call it splintering, right? So you might have a great, we've all done this. We go into a store. One day there's a great guy in there and you have a great time and he's really, helpful and useful. And you think, wow, what a great store that was. What a great experience I just had buying something from that store. And you go in next week, somebody else there, they don't care. They're playing on their phone. You're asking questions. They're not engaged. They're rude to you. And you think that's a bad decision in terms of how they've recruited and how they're engaging with that employee. And that's affected me as a customer. Now you amplify that in more complex situations. If you've got a disengaged team or even a team that are engaged, but engaged with the wrong idea of what we're doing here, they're going to innovate differently. They're going to create things that are not relevant to the core of what the brand needs to be. They're going to make decisions, and particularly as the organization then scales and grows, you've got managers, they're going to be recruiting into their team. Have you provided some guidelines to say, look, these are our type of people. These are the types of people we need to work for our organization in order to serve our customers really, really well. Because if you don't, you can't, you obviously, I'm an advocate of giving people lots and lots of chances and working with people. But sometimes if somebody doesn't believe what you believe, just deep down, you can't often change that. So there is a kind of cultural issue here because we're dealing with people and emotion.
Yeah, cultural dissonance. Like when your employees have a different meaning of your brand and when they communicate differently, that's going to create a lot of dissonance. So Matt, I read a lot of content. I heard that you are trained by the rock star of branding, Marty Neumayer. So I just want to know, like, how was your experience? And you started out as a graphic design and then starting an agency. Now you're a decade old into yourself. Entrepreneurship. I would like to learn from you. How was your journey so far? And what are you going to do in the future?
So my journey so far, oh man, that's a story. That's a roller coaster ride. I don't want to bore you too much, Sheikh, but I started in graphic design. And I did that for, I don't know, nearly 15 years. I don't know. I'm getting old now. I can't remember. And I started as a very young age, as a junior, worked my way up in agencies. And the one thing that always annoyed me was, as you get more senior in as a creative designer, you realize you're being asked to sometimes, put a veneer on things, right? And often I would come across problems of alignment really early in my career where you'd sort of be working with a client, maybe a chief marketing officer or a marketing director, and you'd say, well, look, I understand you need me to design this, but how does this fit into your wider sort of thinking? Like, what is the purpose of this brand? Why do you exist? Beyond making money, what's the thing? I mean, I understand you want to make money and generate X amount of leads, but frankly, nobody cares about that apart from you, right? And your bosses. But I need to understand this from the customer's perspective. Like, why should I care, right, about what you're doing here? What's the selling points for me? What's the personality from, what identity am I building for myself when I buy from your brand? So, big questions. And often they didn't know. So that led to, a bit of frustration. And as I grew in my career, I eventually, as you say, started my own agency. I was quite young when I started it. I'm probably a bit foolish in a way, a bit bold, a bit crazy. Had no training around, running businesses other than I just thought I could do it, perhaps a little bit arrogantly. And I did, I started and I grew to a reasonably sized agency. And we started working with some big brands here in the UK, Boots, Nikon, you mentioned, Specsavers, which are big glasses brands, some big brands. And the reason why those brands were working with our team was because I developed workshops, which basically at the start, they were developed to help those marketing managers get to grips with some of these questions. And then they would form a brief that I could go back to my team to brief the team with creatively. So that's where that came from. And so that led to me doing a lot of research. I came across this chap called Marty Neumeier, who you've referred to, who was a branding expert from Silicon Valley. And he did sort of design work and create and strategic work for Apple and HP and some really big brands. So, I started reading his stuff and was really impressed by that and folded some of his ideas into my workshops. And, that was great. And as time went on, I had children, as you do, and my wife was in the business as well. And we were kind of like, no, this is we need to rethink this, because it was taking up a lot of time. It was very stressful running a small agency. And so what we eventually did was we sold that agency. And I went to work for a much bigger agency. I think there were 50, 60 people at the time, more digital marketing. And I headed up their creative department, if you like. And then I did that for a bit. And again, I found myself in situations where people were unsure, they were unclear on these big questions. So I would offer to go in, I was the creative director, but go in and run workshops. And again, they seem to like that. So this is going on now, 10 plus years over the course of my agency and this new agency, maybe 13, 14 years, I think, all in, I was running workshops. And then I was headhunted by a big corporate, and I went to work in-house to develop their in-house capabilities of an in-house studio for them, which we helped set up, and they were rebranding. They're a global corporate, which was really cool. I got to visit like Toronto.
Is that Nestle? Nestle?
That was Capital One, the credit card company, Capital One. I got to visit them. Yes. They're quite big here in the UK.
Yes.
And as I say, they were global. So yeah, I got some really cool stuff. The trip to Toronto just stands out as just such a fantastic time to understand and work on how they work on really big brands. And we were rebranding Capital One, which is here in the UK, which has been done now for a couple of years. And I was part of the team that helped set some of the processes and the thinking up for that. So I got to see it inside, which was great. And then I took redundancy from there, and I started and basically I was kind of like, oh, what do I do now, right? So I was offered redundancy, I took it, and I was sort of like, okay, what do I do now? I've done the agency thing, I've done the design thing, and I've gone in-house. So what I decided to do was go where I knew that I was at my strongest, which was in the workshop style approach, the collaborative approach. Mm-hmm. And I got some opportunities to consult. So I wasn't doing any design work, but I was just using my brain. So for me, a consultant's a brain, not a pair of hands. So I'd done the hand stuff, I've done the hard graft, and it was lovely to be asked to kind of give more advice and really become the energy to infuse into brands, to bring this thinking into organizations. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 3 years. And it's been amazing. I have worked with some really amazing, big companies as well as small companies all over the world, so that's been phenomenal. And I'm really, grateful for those opportunities, because I've really enjoyed it. And I am enjoying it. So what do I do in the future? I don't know. I really don't know. I think branding is getting more and more complex. Maybe a big brand will come along and say, Matt, we need someone like you to really kind of lead the charge on a project. But at the moment, I'm kind of like spreading myself. I tend to have about 3 or 4 clients on the run or on the go, and they retain me. And then I give my advice, and we move their brands forward. It takes time. That's the other thing. I mean, you can do short bursts and sprints, and I'm all for that. Like I love doing like really insane, high pressure, high sprint situations. Agile swarming, it's called, where you get all the people in the room and you don't let them out the room until we've made the right decisions and we run through exercises. I'm all for that, but and I think I see that coming more and more. But I do see that it takes time, particularly when you come to culture change and transformation. It takes a long time. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, and hopefully that gives you a flavor of where I'm coming from. So I don't do any design work now. No, I haven't done any design for many years now. But I still use design and the principles of design in designing organizations and designing ways of getting brand thinking throughout the organization and out into the customer experience is still what I'm all about.
When you said like the future of branding is getting more complex, by that I would like to ask you a question. What do you think? Who owns a brand? Is it the customer, or is it the different stakeholders who owns the brand? Or is it, I want to hear from you.
The customer owns it. That's why it's so scary. Because look, if the brand is the meaning that other people attach to us, okay, then they own that meaning. It's in their hearts and minds. So they own it. But and that's a horrible thing, because as business leaders, we like to think we own, it's our brand. It kind of is in that you make the decisions, but ultimately, if those decisions are rejected by your audience, right, you're not going to have a brand. Your brand's going to go. So you kind of have to think about it from the customer's perspective. The customer owns the brand, and you need to get in sync, therefore, with what the customer's thinking and feeling and make decisions based on that.
So when you're creating a brand, you're not creating one identity. You're creating million identities which are going to be perceived by your customer. One customer might have a different perception. The other person might have a different perception. So
that is right. But what you're looking to do is you're trying to create something that is unified in its high level principles, right? What you want to do is have a situation where you become known for something, in the customer's mind. Now, you might have lots of different customers. They might have slightly different experiences, but on the whole, you want them to go to you for that particular thing. Like Amazon, for example, we just go there because it's convenient. So they're owning convenience, right? If you want something quick and easy and it's on Amazon, you go to Amazon, right? And it gets delivered next day here in the UK, at least, which is, it's just like magic. It's insane, but they're absolutely owning it. And that's not because they've got a great logo. It's because they've designed the process so that it's dead easy for me to get what I need. So they've owned that. But you don't go to Amazon for a great evening experience, to take. You don't think, oh, my wife, it's my anniversary with my wife. Let me buy an experience from Amazon. You don't do that. You take your wife to a nice location with a restaurant that's beautiful, or whatever the thing, like whatever you need to do. So the thing is so that restaurant, what is that standing for in my mind? Is it standing for elegance and a lovely experience? And what is it? So what I'm trying to say is there's room in the brandscape for lots of different meaning, because what we're after as consumers is meaning. But the question is what meaning does your brand need to portray to what audience? So what meaning is it? What audience is it? And the two need to be considered together.
I mean, I'm so in awe of you when you're talking. I mean, how you describe Amazon. I mean, that those different definitions which I've heard, like owning convenience. This is like quite a. I feel like I'm talking to a thought leader. When I interviewed schedule an interview, I thought like, okay, we are going to talk about typography. We're going to talk about Amazon logo and how it has changed. But then this is something you have covered. Business functions, you're covered about leadership, then you're covered about meaning, how you attach it. I mean, this is quite insightful. So I would like to wind this, Matt, and I would don't like to disturb your morning time, early mornings. So basically what we'll do is I'll just pause the thing, and before pausing, a vote of thanks. Thanks a lot, Matt Davies, for coming up. I mean, this was quite an insightful session. I'm looking forward to more such sessions, and we collaborate in the near future to work on with few brands.
That would be amazing. Thank you so much for having me on. And it's humbling to hear you talk about me like that. Like I just feel like I'm a normal person trying to create great brands. And for me, just to sort of final kind of thought is where all of this really came from was this idea of truth. I think we we don't value truth enough. And I think it should be something we should all pursue. So in other words, if we're running a brand and we're saying one thing, that's got to marry with the reality of our organization and the experiences that we create for customers. And if it doesn't, I think in today's world, we will get found out. Social media will expose us. And so for that reason alone, I think we need to value truth more on authenticity. I know it's a bit of a buzzword, but it's true. So define your meaning and then stay true to it within and without, and you'll build a great brand. That's my parting view.
Wow, that's quite insightful. A last question, to follow up with that, I have this, like, do you have any clients who are coming up and who are saying like, see, in this Uber connected world, people are businesses are very, concerned about numbers, their obsession with numbers. We are making this content, it's not getting number. When you said be true, and when the customer perceive it, they'll come to you. So what's your take on this? When people are over obsessed with numbers, they're putting out content and things are not working out. So what do you say in that context?
Well, do you know what? It depends on the organization, it depends on the offer, it depends on a lot of factors. But here's just something generally that I observe, Sheikh. We look to digital marketing as the be all and end all of generating leads, and obviously it's a phenomenal thing, and we spend a lot of time online and a lot of attention on our mobiles and on social media platforms. So I'm not trying to say that that's foolish. It's a good place to definitely to attract people. However, one thing that is often overlooked, and I think this is the key thing, is if we are creating such a fantastic, very helpful service or product and experience for the customer, if we focus on doing a brilliant job of that, okay, that will spread without us having to go and smash down doors all the time, right? So I'm not saying people still need to be aware of it. So their digital marketing has a place, but the focus often isn't in innovation. It isn't in let's create a great experience. Let's make this the best in this thing for this type of people. What we think of is right, we're selling this product. Let's go. We've got an old school model, which is like an advertising model, and almost industrial revolution model, which is like, we're making this stuff coming out of our factory. Let's run around to as many people as possible and say, buy this thing. Even if they don't want it, who cares? We're just going to, it's a numbers game. So we're going to say it to a million people. And if 1% buy, then great. But what about the 99% that hate it, right? So why don't we make it better so that more of the 99% will enjoy it? And then it will grow a little bit more organically. So maybe I'm a bit, I'm probably a bit, these are sweeping statements. But all I'm saying is that, the product or the service is only one part. If you can create the whole experience and connect with people on a different level, frankly, a lot of research is being done at the moment. I was reading, and basically, we still buy, like, we're humans, right? So say I trust you, which I do, Sheikh, right? And I'm like, hey, I need a new shirt, right? That looks like a good quality shirt. Where did you get that from? And you say to me, well, I got it from, this brand. And then I think, well, Sheikh wears that. He's a cool guy, and he says it's good quality. And and if you said to me, and not only that, Matt, like, I could customize it, I could customize this button here and this patch here. And, so I really created it to myself. And do you know what, Matt? It wasn't that expensive. And it was actually really great, because once I'd done that, it was quite a fun experience to customize it. I could upload a photo and it showed me in it. And it was a bit funny, actually. Here's the photo of it, as I was creating it. And then the other thing was I just hit buy, and it came next day, right? And the experience was just so cool. You've got to try it, right? Now I'm like, whoa, that's really interesting. Like, let me try that, because I want to customize my own shirt as well, and it's good quality. And Sheikh said to do this, and he did it. And so there's just, so do you see what I'm saying? Like, that is how we buy. Genuinely, that is how we buy for most items. So why don't we spend time creating brilliant experiences like that?
I'm like so in awe of you. Thanks a lot, Matt Davies, for coming up, and we'll subsequently have a follow-up meet.
Sheikh, it's been absolutely awesome. But yeah, and I look forward to hearing from you, and I look forward to seeing this content somewhere else, when it comes out.